and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend.
Alrighty, hello everyone. I've just got to figure out how to get us back on the screen and then press the right button, which I have failed to do. How is everyone? How are you doing, Eric? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Rob. As always, thank you.
And we have chat. How are you going, chat? Let's see who's here. Great Sage. Hey, how Rob? How Eric? Arc Athena Army. I love that hashtag. Replicator Rebels. I haven't had one before, so thank you, Ospreys. George is in the house. What's happening? Oz Replicator. Did you see the Groken closeout stream yesterday, Eric?
I didn't. I've been sort of head down trying to get this thing done. How was it?
Oh, that was insane. So
yeah,
they went on Leroy's channel. I'm pretty sure you know who Leroy is.
I do.
He has a small channel, right? About the same amount of subs as I do. And they managed to make about $10,000 or $12,000.
Holy cow, that's amazing.
10 hours. So that was absolutely incredible.
Congratulations to that team.
It was a great job. And George, the reason why I brought it up, George stayed up way past his 8 o'clock bedtime. He was up, I'm thinking, to maybe 12 or 1 in the morning, George. I don't know what time it was. It was very late.
That is awesome. That is great.
NTM says, so if Canete is willing to lower his standards for streams, he'll go on. I really hope he doesn't do the same with his art.
What is the preconceived notion that you are of a lower quality stream, Rob? Where does that come from?
It's just that they love hating on me. It's, that's when you know that you've made it, when they hate you so much.
Yeah, I think that's a badge of honor now.
Yeah. Amanda B's in the house. She was another participant in that giant stream yesterday.
That's so cool.
Fantastic. Bancroft is here. You put little jokes in there. Oh, geez. The Golden Girls intro. How does that work? Skip Edwards is here. Let's get through it. K Manifesto. Crackhead is here. It is good to see everyone. So we have Eric here today. He's going to be doing some drawing for us. What are you working on here, Eric?
I am working on issue 4 of Arc Athena. So I'm plugging along, and I think it's one of the reasons why I typically stream on Mondays, right? And it's one of the reasons why I had to skip this Monday stream, is because I really wanted to get some good headway in regards to this issue. I don't want to lose any sort of momentum. So I opted for getting more work done than being on stream, where, as you know, you jokingly told me during chat, Rob, like, Eric always promises to draw, but he never ends up drawing during stream.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and I'm like, the guy's not lying. It's I love interacting with people, but in the 2.5 hours or 2 hours, I could probably get a page done. And I really feel like if I'm going to live up to the my promises, I should just stay on track as much as possible. So this is issue 4.
That's pretty crazy in itself that you're on issue 4 and you haven't even released the first book yet. It's it's unheard of. No one does it this way. So it's interesting to see how that's going to go.
Yeah.
You've already done 3 issues of this thing.
Yeah, I have. And the thing is, I spent all of March. We're about 1 day away from turning into April. I took all of March to sort of get the dialogue pass and have it sent out to my editor, Joe Fulton. I had to say his name in full. I sent that out to Joe just so he can start sort of matching up where the dialogue goes to the panels, and we can start turning the screws and hopefully make sure that everything is legible, make sure that the narrative reads and the themes read. So I didn't lose a month in a way, because it was still Arc Athena related, but I didn't draw all of not much by way of Arc Athena pages for March. So I feel like there's this weird ticking clock in my head that I'm behind,
Yeah, I think it's because you've set yourself to do it this particular way that you feel behind. But
yeah,
in actual fact, you're well ahead of what other people normally do.
I guess so. I guess so.
It's interesting. Chat,
yeah.
it's great to see you all here. If you're able to share this out on socials, let's get some more people in here. I know Malin just started streaming, so he's stolen all my 400 viewers. But yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, guys. I've got a whole heap of questions for you. So
Let's do it.
while you're drawing, I thought I'd ask some. Dojo Kun has popped in, Mortal V as well. So you're launching in September. We'll just do a brief rundown for people that don't know. You're launching in September.
Yes.
The 5-book series.
Yes.
You have a great team. You have yourself. You have Joe Thunderbuns, and you have as editor, and you have Eric as the letterer, and your colorist is Jules.
Yeah, I call him Jules because Giuliano is a tiny bit too long for me to say it at any given time. So Jules, and I checked in with him. I was like, "Is it okay if I call you this?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely, man." And I was like, "Okay, just as long as you're cool with that, you're Jules from here on down." So he's doing a lot. I mean, he just turned in a page right now that he did an effect on one of the characters called the Galaxian, basically a cosmic being that's embedded itself onto the tattoo of one of the characters of the team, and that's how you summon him. And he did an effect on him by way of render that I wasn't quite sure about, And I asked him, like, where are you getting that effect? This sort of like this smoky like feel to it. And he's like, oh, I was sort of pulling from Thanos when he's coming out of that teleportation tube. And it's like, holy cow. And I didn't have a picture in my head, so I didn't react to it as favorably as I should have. But as soon as he said, oh yeah, it's this, and I was like, holy, yeah, we're holding on to that, man. It looks freaking awesome.
Oh, you might have to show us later, because that sounds awesome.
Yeah, let me see if I can dig it up. But I made notes on it, but he just finished it, and I'll send it to myself so that I can show it off.
Awesome. So September launch for the first one.
Yeah.
And you're probably launching for what, 60 days?
That is something that I mentioned this during my retweet of your of this stream on Twitter there, and I'd always sort of leaned on you to be like, what's smart? You tell me what, I've kind of said, in my head, like, Rob's my Sherpa, and he's gonna get me through this awful, snowy, impassable mountain pass. So you tell me what sounds good. I've never done it before. I've never done a campaign like this before. So is 30 smarter? Is 60 smarter? I honestly don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what makes most sense.
Well, the standard is 30 plus 30 plus in demand, right? But you're not gonna. I wouldn't imagine you do in demand, right? Because you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Correct.
So
Correct. Somewhere
between 30 and 60 would be good. Chat, do you have a preference on that? 30 is pretty short for some people.
Yeah.
But then, if you're doing 60 days and you've got to do it 5 times, that's nearly a year. So
exactly. We have to take that into consideration as well, where it's not just the one book, it's not just the one graphic novel that's going out, and I can prolong it in such a way to do 60. But I almost feel like 30 it strikes the right balance as far as cadence of release.
Dojo saying 30 and 30. We saw last night with Groken. Kenneth, he decided not to do in demand. I think he's in a similar kind of mindset as you are. He just wants to get it done. And he had a huge bump.
That's awesome.
Yesterday. Yeah,
that's awesome. So there you go. That's what Jules turned in. And I did not have this effect in mind when we were doing this. Character's called Killer Performance, right? And there's the Galaxian behind her. So he did this paint over here, this smoke effect that's coming off of the Galaxian. It's like, what do you think of this? And I love those texts from him.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's really cool, because he's obviously he's not just phoning it in. He's trying to absolutely destroy it, blow it out, water type thing.
And he's thinking about the characters, which is a great sort of muscle to flex, because I would hope that with any collaborator, they are actually contributing to the product, they're so passionate. In this case, I think Jules is so passionate about it. He tries to understand the motivation behind the characters, what sort of like, especially visually, he goes like, what's unique and distinct about them that I can plus up that Eric doesn't have that I didn't have on the page, you know?
I think Bancroft is saying, I think for your first time, do 30 and 30, see how that goes. Then after the first, see if you want to cut that down to 30. I think that's a smart call.
Yeah. That way we can take the temperature of it, right? To see like, this is doing well. This is setting up a positive trend to whatever, you know. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And Crackhead says the same thing. If you're not going into mana, do the 60 at least. And you do the 30 because you get an uptick at the end of the first 30, and then at the start of the next 30 you get it too. So you kind of get a few little more bumps, which is cool.
That's cool. That's really cool.
All right. So let's see how you go drawing and answering questions at the same time.
Yeah, let's see if I can do it, man. Because I sure as hell can't do it when I'm streaming.
What has the response been like from, say, fans of your work that you're doing a comic book now?
You know what? That is a great question that I can't answer because I don't know if I've taken people's temperature enough about it. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know how you guys do it to have a really tight knit, super supportive community, have an understanding of your product, and then go into pre and post production at the same time. I don't know if I have that. I don't know if I can keep that many plates spinning at any given time. So that question falls under the like the social media version of myself, like the fan awareness, you know what I mean? I don't know if I've ever taken that big of a temperature. I'm almost like, let me get this thing done first and then go into full hype mode, which I think is more manageable for me. If not necessarily, it's not the most ideal, right? Because you kind of want to be able, I don't know from your experience, if you need to do it both at the same time.
Well, from what you've told me, you're going to have the whole thing done before you launch.
Correct.
So
from page 1 to page 200 some odd.
I mean, that's pretty cool because then you can just flick that switch and go into the promo mode because you don't have to worry about any of this stuff to get it done because you've done it.
For sure. Yeah. But in the handful of times that I've reached out to, for instance, like, you know, really enthusiastic, really supportive people such as yourself, such as the people in the chat, it's been phenomenal. The response has been phenomenal. So I can say that. And I think to me, that's an encouraging sample size, because if there had been instances where people saw it and were like, I don't know, man, I'm not into X, right? I would definitely take note of that. But for the most part, people are on board.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Also, chat, if you have any questions, please ask them and I'll try and ask Eric when I see them.
Please.
So the question was, what's the response been like from fans? What about your colleagues or your former colleagues or your current work people that you work with now? Because you do concept art. So
they you know, I across the board, I think it's been overwhelmingly positive and supportive. There's always conversations of like, how do you make it a viable sustainable business venture? And because nobody has quite done it the same way, there's not that much data out there, right? So that question is coming from a place of support. They're saying, how can we give you the right sort of information so that this will work out for you? You know, similar to when you and I have a conversation offline, it's coming from that really supportive place. So I think I think to that end, it's been super good. I'm trying to think if there's an example in which somebody goes like, I don't know if that's going to work, man. Yeah, I don't know. I think everybody's excited for it just to see how well it does, right? Yeah, because I don't know if there's an example out there that I can point to and say, oh yeah, it's kind of like that, you know.
Corey's in the house. Good to see you, Corey.
Hello, Corey.
I've talked to you a fair bit in regards to Arc Athena. It feels like you're giving everything you have to make sure this is a success.
Yes.
How does your family feel about it?
My God bless my wife. She's been incredibly supportive of the whole thing. Um, and I think just in general, because we're both artists, we're both creative people, she understands that I need I need that creative space to kind of flex and inhabit, you know?
Mhm.
So she's been nothing but supportive. She hopes that she's pulling for me that it works, right? Because she can see it as, if this works out for us, this could be the thing that you do full time. Now, I never thought about that. I just kind of like, oh,
Mm.
this is fun. But she's like, man, if it works, then you could be doing comics full time under your own steam, which doesn't say anything poor about my current situation as a concept artist, but certainly there's there's a victory in that agency. You know what I mean, Rob? Like, you get to pick and choose whatever the heck you want, right? There's something to that for sure.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So, do you have an idea of what success looks like with the campaign? And if it is successful in your mind, do you have other stories you want to tell?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. There's always the stories that being a big comic book fan from way back, there's always the part of me when I'm reading comics. I'm a huge X-Men nerd. So there's always a part of me that was like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if the X-Men did this? I'd love to be able to, I want to be able to do those kinds of books, and maybe not in the universe of Arc Athena, but certainly along the themes of wouldn't it be cool if. As far as a success metric, there is, and it's weird because it's not very businessy. So forgive me. I think you have a better head for this space than I do. My success metric is that it's done. Is that weird? Like, I don't look at it as like, oh, it needs to sell 150,000 copies, or I need to make X hundreds of thousands. It'd be great if based on the initial expense, which is, I just did the math, and it'll stun you, the amount of money that goes in the upfront spending of something. If you do a campaign like this, right? It's pretty profound. It'd be great if I broke even, but really I shift it to like, I just want to be able to get the story done. And if I do it well and learn a ton off of it, I feel like with every page, I'm getting more comfortable, with the isms that I'm discovering, right? So that's one success metric. The other one is obviously monetary and financial, which is less important to me. And then the other one is just to be able to sort of have people enjoy it, I want to have people come back with, in whatever capacity, whatever feedback that I get, and they're like, this is great. I really like the story, or even to the point it's like, maybe not so much, but you could probably get better at doing this. I think that kind of feedback would be another version of success for me. I don't know. Is that too wishy-washy? I don't know. It's weird.
That's fine. I think that works well. Crackhead says here, is that something you want to do full-time, comics?
That's a great question. And I'd never thought of it up until recently. The reason why I would have said no 5-6 years ago is because I got really super disenfranchised with the industry of comics. The actual doing of comics, especially the way I'm doing it now, is so incredibly fun that if I can somehow hold on to this enthusiasm, if I can find a way to bottle it and continue to sip from it whenever sort of like energy drops low, then yes, I would love to be able to do comics full time.
And that kind of goes around to my next question. You hear a lot of horror stories from people that have worked in the mainstream.
Sure.
What was your experience like in general?
In working in the mainstream, I found that I'd worked with the main company that I worked with in person was at Wildstorm with Jim Lee. And Jim had been incredibly patient with me in my development as an artist because I think he could relate. He extended me a very, very long leash to sort of get good at my job. And unfortunately, I could just never deliver on the potential. So if there's a horror story, it's because I got too caught up in the hype of it rather than focusing on the craft of it. And that didn't help at all with my disenfranchisement with the industry as a whole, right? I really thought that I was like, my poop didn't stink. You know what I mean, Rob? I always thought like, oh, look at me. I'm working with Jim Lee. I'm at Wildstorm. I'm with the cool guys that did X, Y, and Z. Really, that's just the door. Or excuse me, that's just the entryway, right? Once you walk through the door, you've actually got to deliver. And I don't think I was mentally prepared to tackle that part of the job. So
and that's an interesting point, because like you seem to have switched, or that might have been a big lesson for you to learn, because you seem very humble now.
Yeah, I try to be. Those are very humbling experiences, right? Like to go in there, and I remember Jim was working on Hush at the time. And to sit there and work on a book with Jim Lee, as he's not just running a company. He's not just running like while it's day-to-day operations, signing off on whatever it is that a person in a heads of state position that he was in at that time. But he's also doing a book that would become really well celebrated and one of the most successful things that he's done for DC, you know? So to contrast myself to that guy and the amount of work that he was able to output, my contributions were anemic. And so that's the kind of stuff that humbles you, you know, when you take a look at this guy and he's still able to be Jim Lee, you know? So it was a great point of reference for me. Like I said, super humbling. And I've always kind of held on to that moment of like, don't let the hype get way ahead of what it is that you're doing, you know, because you've still got to do it. You've still got to deliver.
Did that like affect you pretty deeply mentally at the time?
No, because I didn't. I was too stupid to understand it. Like, you know,
you kind of look back on it now.
Yeah, I only in retrospect was I able to look back and go, geez, Louise, look at that missed opportunity for you. And I mean, I don't sit there and try to cry over spilled milk for too long, but it really is sobering to look at the younger version of myself, seeing the opportunities that I had and realizing that I was ill prepared to take full advantage of it, you know? So I've been sort of in part, not in whole, but in part like in a makeup mode for that version of me. To sort of pour myself into the work that I have now, not just in comics, but with everything, you know, like stay as humble as possible, assume that I'm the stupidest person in the room and that there's obviously a ton more people in that room that I can learn from. And I think it's problematic if I'm the expert in the room, you know, like if I'm the best person in that room, I'm not challenging myself enough to be the worst person in the room. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. We've got a couple of questions from people here. Crackhead again saying, are you planning on hiring any other artists, CG or otherwise, to do any variant covers or trading cards for Arc Athena? Good question, Crackhead.
That's a great question. The answer was at one point, yes, I would. I was arrogant enough to reach out to all the image founders, including, I think it was like, you know, good pals of mine, like, you know, J. Scott Campbell and Joe Madureira, to ask them for like, hey, can you do like alternate covers? Because obviously this is a wink and a nod to their efforts way back in the day. And then thankfully, I didn't get too many replies because it dawned on me that the coordination nightmare that would have had to happen these guys aren't just sitting around waiting for stuff to happen. They're running companies. They're running industry. So the coordination nightmare, I'm trying to make that work, even if they did manage to find time to fit me in, which I've been 100%, 200% grateful for. I don't think I would have been able to do it. So thankfully, they didn't reply. And so instead, I took it upon myself to be like, if I'm going to be accountable, if I want to hold anybody accountable, I'd rather hold myself accountable. So the challenge then is I'm going to do alt covers in all of those guys' styles instead, because at the very least, I'm the person that's accountable to me, you know? So to answer your question, there were plans to have other artists, but now I'm like, I'm so paranoid to fall behind schedule. I'd rather not. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you have K-Manifestus here. Eric, when you meet someone, do you talk a bit about being an artist right away?
No.
Do you
Do I
avoid
talk
that?
like if I meet somebody new, do I go like, "Hey, I'm an artist, yada yada yada"? Is that what they're asking?
I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I I don't. I think it's so much more intriguing to me to know the person whom I meet first, right? Like, so as much as I can, I talk to them about who they are, and I don't know. That's just a much better conversation. I deal with me 24 hours a day. Why would I want to talk about myself any more than I need to?
Drew's here. You can see Drew. So you said you had an issue with production, I guess, or getting stuff out quickly. Back in the mainstream comic days. Has that changed now? Like, are you a lot quicker? You seem to be a lot quicker than what you potentially were.
Yeah. It has changed because I care less. Like, the thing that I'd learned after I'd failed miserably in comics, and I went back to animation, and thankfully people were really good enough to hire me back because I really loved that industry. I burned my bridge leaving that, thinking like, oh, I'm off to comics, I'm going to be the greatest guy, and then having to sort of go back completely humbled, hat in hand, asking people, hey, is there an opportunity for me in your production? I came back as a storyboard artist, and that taught me speed because and especially in Boys Action Adventure, the thing that I came back to was a show called He-Man in 2005. And doing Boys Action Adventure, you're having to do maybe close to 250 3-panel pages at any given time, right? On a 4-week turnaround. So it taught me speed, and it taught me efficiency. And then eventually I graduated to going into Warner Brothers and working with Bruce Timm and working on the Justice League and Superman, and Warner Brothers related animated shows. And again, that helped to hyper define what's ultimately important, which is storytelling. And then on occasion, when it's nice, I can plus up certain scenes, by being putting a little bit more pencil mileage behind it. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is like, I care less because in storyboards, the production pipeline doesn't end with me. It goes to a director, and a director gets to make a final call on whether or not a scene goes, or if you need to change it for whatever reason, whether it be clarity or just composition, what have you. So I never cared that much about the shot. I gave a comprehensive interpretation of what I was getting from the script, but I never fell in love with the shot. Right. So that kind of built that muscle up to be like, I'm not going to be precious about all of this stuff, which was a complete contrast to what I used to do way back in the day, which is like every panel means a lot and blah, 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 blah. These days, I'm kind of like, I got 400 panels to do, man. I'll get one of those right.
Bancroft asks, how often do you shave your head?
Every week, whenever possible. But sometimes I get lazy. It's like, it's quarantine. I don't got to look like anything today. And then it's like, oh, it's Monday. I got to be on camera. I better look semi-presentable.
Manifesto asks, do you use reference?
Depends. Yeah, that's a great question. Just as recently as yesterday, I was doing the shorthand for what Rob Liefeld does for like the tightening of crotch pants. And then I realized like this comes from nothing except for Rob's interpretation. So I'm already using his shorthand. I literally had to look up tight crotch pants and how the drapery. I was like, I don't know how that goes. I've only ever done the comic book version of it. I've never really learned how that shit works,
Got another question for Skip, and then we'll talk about what you're working on now. Most storyboard artists talk about tools for the screen trade as their handbook. Anything else you'd recommend for sequential storytelling?
Tools for the screen. Oh shit, man! I don't even know that book. Like, I think more than any piece of like written material is just your own sort of awareness of why things work when you're watching a movie, and this is a really good exercise to build up your sort of like deconstruction muscles of why shots work in a movie. Like anytime that a scene is happening, you have to understand what that scene is about, what it's trying to communicate to you, and then what the director is doing in order to communicate that emotion or that narrative to you. You can do this on your own independent of a book. So as an exercise, like when you're watching a scene in a movie and you're like, whoa, that felt like something, rewind, scrub back, and then really understand like why did that land so well with me? Is it the shot? Is it the composition? Is it the series of shots leading into that really profound moment in which that actor delivered that line? Those kinds of things. Or like, is it a series of action shots that made you go, I totally understand everything that happened and I want to deconstruct what that is. So not necessarily a book, but you can do this. You can do it on your own. You know, you can do sequential story, like deconstruct sequential storytelling on your own. Even in comics, you can go like, why does that shot work? Or more importantly, why are those series of shots confusing? And then go back and go through the exercise of like what you would do in order to help with clarity and legibility. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So what is this you're working on here?
This is page 6 of issue 1. Yeah, this is page 6 of issue 1, in which, how many of you guys like care for, I mean, I just spoke to you about this offline, Rob. You're gonna, it's just gonna basically be the spoilers of issue 4, and I don't want to spoil it for you if you were like, hey, I want to go in fresh with the.
Yeah, you can spoil it for me because I'll forget in a week anyway.
Okay, cool.
I would not spoil it for them.
Yeah, I don't know if in chat, if you guys don't want any of this stuff spoiled, if you guys have, your memory is like a trap and you don't forget anything, please, earmuffs right now. But there is a scene in which Arc Athena goes up against Arc Poseidon. And I'd been building into that space for like 3 issues, the circumstances of which I won't get into because it's I'll leave that for the book. But this is the issue, and I told you this offline as well, Rob, backstage, Rob, where issue 4 is about 80, maybe closer to 90% splash pages and double page spreads. So it really is the culmination of this, of this head-to-head fight between those 2 teams.
I mean, that's awesome. And that's like one of the awesome things about crowdfunding too, is that you can do whatever the hell you want to do with your book.
You're right.
You don't have to do it a certain particular way in a certain amount of particular pages. You can do whatever you want. So if you want to do double or single page splashes the whole way through, you can do so.
Yeah. And my thing is like, what are double page or like splashes ultimately for? It's supposed to give you that moment of oomph in a series of panels. There's a series of pages that's like 4 or 5 panels at a time, right? So you get this big splash page and you go like, oh, holy crap, look how awesome that is, because it's really big moment, right? But if I do an entire book full of splash pages, is it going to be, is it going to deliver on that oomph? And I realize, hopefully it will, because it's like every page, well, like I said, 90% of the pages is them just duking it out, and then with the backdrop of an alien invasion. So all of the shots feel big, so it helps to service the narrative and the story. So I think in that, I kind of reasoned it out in my own head that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in Replicator 4, I've got a fight sequence which is like 15 pages, and I'm like,
that's so freaking cool.
Yeah,
15 pages of like a well choreographed fight. That is so freaking cool.
Yeah. Manifesto here, Eric. Do you compose the page as a whole, or do you focus more on individual panel composition?
Yeah, that's a great question. Back in the day, when I would do like my traditional 16:9 or whatever it is, the aspect ratio that I was doing for Mark Millar's book on Chrononauts, I used to do it panel by panel. Like I didn't care about the page composition because that's how I was meaning you to read it panel to panel. But with a book like Arc Athena, everything has to be composed in such a way. But I still didn't. The one rule that I have is that it needs to be clear, right? Like you need to understand what the heck is going on in the panel. I'm telling you, thank God Jules is coloring this book, because there's plenty of times where I break that rule. It's not like a bunch of guys driving cars and motorcycles where you understand there's real world analogs for that. And clarity is pretty built in. It's freaking aliens, so there's times when you go like, that alien form doesn't make any sense to me. I've never seen, I don't have a point of reference for that. So thank goodness Jules is there, and he helps me along with clarity. So top of the line for me is yeah, I can design a fancy page, but if it doesn't read, then I need to go start over.
And Joe will keep you on track with that as well. He'll
Thank goodness.
know if stuff doesn't land. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
thank goodness.
He pretty much said that about every page on the Lucent. So,
I think that's a dig, right? I think that's a
yes,
dig. Okay.
very much so. Eric, what character archetype do you enjoy drawing most?
It's got to be some version of a superhero. That's why I did a superhero book as opposed to a noir book, as opposed to a fantasy book, as opposed to, I like, and I didn't know this as a kid, but it spoke pretty profoundly to me later on when I realized what it was. I liked understanding that even as flawed, and I think that's the reason why Marvel Comics spoke to me so much, is because even as flawed as they are as people, as characters, they still had the principles to try and do better than the flaw that you've identified, right? Like you could wallow in that concept. You can say like, oh, I'm never going to be as good because I have all of these things working against me, or you can rise above and be like, I can still do good. And that's what I think Marvel, back when I was reading comics, really landed. They had characters that had built-in flaws, and they still managed to be heroes. And I love that. I love that concept.
Bancroft is pointing out he's only $258 away from catching me now, which is horrendous.
Are you ahead, Rob?
Yeah, I'm ahead.
right.
Might have been in demand for about 10 years, but he's still catching me. I had a couple of questions for you as well.
Yeah.
Where is it though? Which is your favorite character from Arc Athena?
Shit, what a great question. Gristle is fun to write. Who's the lead for Arc Poseidon? Because he, to me, is Jeff Bridges from True Grit, the character Rooster Cogburn. He's fun to write. So I feel like his voice, I hope Joe agrees. But he's fun to write because I'm just writing Rooster Cogburn. But as far as like actual character, there is a guy called Old Man Strength, and I can somewhat relate to him. There's a character called Old Man Strength who has these power bands that have been imbued by like warrior spirits. Basically, he's the analog for something like, oh gosh, like Green Lantern, but not really, right? The thing that gives him the most power are these bands that are basically handcuffing him to keep using them, and the more he uses them, the older he gets. If that makes any sense. I love that guy because in spirit I can relate to him. I feel like I'm an old man.
And which character do you think has the best design that you've done?
Crap. I'm not even paying attention. I think I really pay attention to like silhouettes. So if they stand out enough from each other, like if I go in there and black in, all the main characters, can you tell them apart of each other? I can confidently say yes. But in as far as like best design, I don't have a favorite. I think the success there was like, can you tell this character from this character? And the answer is yes.
Cool. Here's a question from Bancroft. Are you going to do a puzzle tier?
I don't think I can compete in that space because I think Bancroft pretty much has that locked down. But I am, Rob, to your a piece of advice. This is interesting news. I reached out to a model maker / what do you call it, manufacturer. Yeah. And if it's within reason, I think there will be a tier in which that statue will be available.
Sick.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
Yeah. So hopefully, I'm still trying to get a quote for it because I think they don't do, at least for their business, the two that I reached out to, they don't do any lower than 50 at a time. And I'm sure because the production number is so low, each of them is going to cost X. And I don't want it to be, like unapproachable from a supporter, from a backer side. You know what I mean? So
It'd be interesting to see what the price point is on them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How have the signups gone so far?
I think pretty positively, right? Again, I don't have a point of reference. So is it like, oh, it's only X amount of months out? Should I have this much? Should I have this many? I think the fact that people are signing up to it is pretty awesome. I was on 2 weeks ago, I was on Black Rose's stream and I said, like, if I get 100 signups, I'll be pretty freaking pretty happy, right? That's 100 more people that know about it and 100 more people that I can talk to about it. So I don't know. It's weird how I de-escalate my expectation, maybe to shield myself from disappointment, but certainly because my brain, specifically because my brain's in it, not in it. Right. So I just go, I'll worry about that when I need to worry about that.
Everyone in chat too, the link for the signups down below in the description, or it should be. So yeah, it is there. Just click on it, sign up. It takes like 2 seconds, and you can win this crazy like 3D bust.
Yeah,
one of his characters.
I have it sitting around here somewhere. I might be able to share it later, but yeah.
Do you haven't got the original yet, like the actual produced one?
No, I am all of two. Like my friend who is actually doing the giveaway version, not the production version, right? Not the campaign version, but the giveaway version of that bust. Out of the kindness and what do you call it? The kindness of his heart, my friend is actually going to be the one that's going to be 3D printing each and every single one of those, the giveaway versions. Cool. And so as soon as I have that in hand, you can bet your butt I'm going to be hyping the heck out of that in social media to be like, this is what you can be getting, so please sign up.
Awesome.
Yeah. So look, Rob, I'm drawing.
Yeah, you've done that.
Not well, but I'm drawing,
My big says Eric is so humble. He's not only would be happy with 100 signups, but he admits going on B Rose's show.
I don't know if I'm at liberty to say this, but so forgive me. I think there was a conversation in backstage where they were so enthusiastic to have me. He went far, and I won't go into detail, but he went far and above to have me on. And I'm like, that's really humbling to think about that they would go to that extent to say, hey man, we're huge fans of your work and we want to have you on our show. And we're willing to go to the nth degree to have you on. I'm like, holy crap, who would do that? Would do that? But I'm so very grateful. So yeah, of course I'm going to be, enthusiastic to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
It's cool. It's cool seeing you get on different people's shows. I enjoy it. Bancroft says, I know how many signups you'll get, Eric, and it's not 100.
Oh, huh. Well, here's hoping, but if it's just at 100, I'm gonna be like, see, just 100.
Let's have a look here. Do you collect original art?
I used to. I had close to every single page of Wolves of St. August from Mike Mignola's Hellboy.
Wow.
From back in the day. There is a really famous Bill Sienkiewicz painting of Dark Phoenix Saga. Do you know that one where Phoenix is in an X? Anybody who's collected that trade paperback will know what it looks like. And I had that in my collection. I traded my original art for it. Glenn Danzig had it, who had me draw his comics way back in the day. Glenn had the original. I traded my art for it, and I had that in my possession for such a long time. And I ran into this awful financial trouble where I felt like the only way I could recover was to sell off those things,
Oh.
So I sold all of my original art, and I think from that I'm so traumatized into holding and buying original work because of that one experience. I've never really picked up the habit again. But that used to be when you're a kid and you have like the money to be able to afford like a Kevin Nolan or a Mike Mignola or a Bill Sienkiewicz, it's such a huge feather in my cap. But since that happened, I've been sort of gun shy about bringing that back into my hobbies because heaven forbid something like it would just be too heartbreaking to do it all over again.
Yeah. as you know, that we had Roquefort on Leroy's yesterday, and
Yeah.
he doesn't sell any of his original art. He keeps
Right.
it all.
Did he
And
explain why? Was it just not a thing that he liked doing, or?
I think he just wants to keep it. I
Yeah.
think and I don't think he sells anything. Like he pulled out a folder of the work he's done for CG, and that probably alone would have been like $100,000 book if he chose to
Oh yeah.
sell.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. Damn financial problems. Bancroft says, if you're a fan of Nola, have you seen Wyatt by Reagan Lodge? It's a crowd.
No, I haven't. I have not. I've been out of the comic book buying loop, and I think that's a deficiency that I need to. I can never find my way back into buying comics again, and I don't know what it is. Like, there's a lot of theories and a lot of conversations out there that comics as a hobby is something that you kind of have to continue to cultivate, or else once you fall out of that hobby, it's hard to get back into it. Do you believe in that, Rob? Like, do you buy comics consistently, whether digital or traditional?
No, I don't. I only buy
Yeah.
crowdfunded books. Yeah, and, the only one book I buy from the mainstream is Lazarus,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
like because it's similar to Replicator.
Right.
But I don't know if this is one of the reasons, but you know, you loved comics for a time, I assume, right? You loved X, but then going and reading what they're doing to it now, it's a scary proposition. It's like the same thing with Star Trek. Like, you know, I'd love to watch all the new Star Trek stuff, but there's part of me that feels it's going to suck and I'm going to hate it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that to myself.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. Not necessarily because, like I have an opinion about the most recent X-Men stuff that I've read, not to the point where I'm going to be like, hey, this sucks, because it speaks to somebody, right? So the best thing that I can do is just kind of like, brush it off my shoulders. And obviously it's not for me, and it doesn't make me enthusiastic to go dig for more, right? Like when you find an era of, at least for me, when I was in a comic buying frenzy, especially Marvel stuff related, X-Men was the gateway drug to all the other stuff that Marvel was publishing. So I didn't stop at X-Men, but I that's the consistent one that I would buy. Now, what happens is when you pick up a book and you're like, oh, this doesn't really feel good. It's not really the kind of stuff I want to continue to read. Nothing gives me motivation to go and try something else in their line. You know what I mean? It's it paints their entire sort of publishing line as like, okay, maybe that's not the comics that I want to read anymore. That's really a shame. I know that's the me issue.
No, I think that's a pretty common issue, though. I think a lot of people feel in that. Let's have a look. I've got some more here. You're so consistent with your social media. How? Me? Yes. You're always posting, and you work like a madman. How do you balance your daytime job, your book, your family, your social media, everything? How do you balance it so well? What would you recommend for other people?
Just thank you for saying that. Although in recent times, I haven't been producing any new artwork except for Athena related stuff, right? So if there's any consistency, is because I built a backlog of work that I can continuously update, right? And with every new set of followers that comes, it's new to them. I'm glad that people who have seen it before aren't so like, hey, we've seen this shit, man. Where's the new stuff? Thank goodness they're not that pointed. So so I have a catalog of work that I can, I refresh for new people who haven't seen it before, for new followers. As far as the consistency, like you can track me like a freaking tagged dolphin, like I wake up at 4:15 a.m. and I have 20 to 30 minutes to put stuff up on social media, right? Afterwards, I cut that off, go have my breakfast and start work, right? So that's the discipline that I put myself through. Maybe in the middle of the day, if I happen to be like going through my folders looking for something and something pops up, I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then I'll put it up on social media. It really is more of an exercise of not being on social media than being on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It's like that saying. What is it? Routine actually sets you free. Something along those lines. Can't remember the
Absolutely.
exact,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
having that, it keeps you. Yeah. So you do that every morning. You wake up 4:15, bam, social media posts for like 20, 30 minutes, and then your day is free to work.
Yep. Yep. I try
Right.
not to even think about it unless, like, you'll ping me and be like, hey, take a look at this page. And I'm like, absolutely. How's that page like? Like, other than that, I avoid it only because it's so easy. And I know how my
Mm,
brain works. It's so easy to go down that rabbit hole of like continuous swiping and seeing what people are talking about and then backtracking that piece of art and seeing that and blah, 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 blah. So I just like, I got to get that. I got to get that out of my diet. It doesn't serve anything except to distract me. And it's 20 minutes that I could have finished a leg. It's 20 minutes I could have finished the background in something. So, yeah, I limit myself as much as possible.
Bancroft says, if you're an artist and you don't have a routine, you're not serious about making comics. That's interesting. I like that.
It certainly makes it that much more challenging. If you're easily distracted, the awful thing is like you know yourself, like what will send you down that rabbit hole into not getting any work done. If you're serious about getting that work done, why don't you put mechanisms and processes in so that you can help leverage the thing that you're really super good at and then omit all the stuff, or at least minimize the stuff that's really negatively impactful to you being productive. I don't understand people sometimes, but that's not for me to judge.
Let's have a look. That was Amanda's question, by the way, who's in chat. I thought it was
awesome.
How long have you been lurking around in streams?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Lurking, like what the pandemic has done, has allowed me to look for other avenues of. I was looking for creative people. I was looking for creative streams, not just like putting on a video and being having a passive experience of listening to that. There's no, I'm not throwing shade at that. That's perfectly fine. There's plenty of like, I subscribe to a YouTube channel that's all about like engineering. I love learning about that stuff. But when it comes to like being part of a community that's about creativity, I love being in those chats, especially when an artist is talking about their craft, right? In whatever capacity. So it ranges from like, here's how you digitally paint something to here's how you crowdfund something, right? And in that case, I think that's one of the best cases in which the algorithm worked in my favor. Does that make sense? Because like I find one comic book stream and then it'll recommend the next thing. And I'm like, oh, that they stream on a daily basis. I'll go sit in that chat and listen to that conversation. That sounds pretty freaking awesome. And then I start picking up on things, not just the process, not just the craft part, but the business part. I'm like, oh, I don't know anything about that. I want to learn about their process. I want to learn about their growth from X subscribers to Y subscribers. That has a lot of value for me.
And what was how did you find us? What was your first stream that you?
Oh shit, that's a great question. Was it your channel got recommended? I definitely found the How to Draw Comics channel first.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. So, and I think that was because I was watching Dave Finch's channel and watching him go through stuff. And the How to Draw Comics got auto recommended. And I was like, oh, I'll sit in on, it wasn't even a stream. It was a video. And I think it was Clayton inking something. Forgive me, I can't remember that far back. But then I was like, oh, these guys do a weekly. Was it weekly back then?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And so I would just sit back and listen because it was a community of people, both. I think it was Corey and Clayton working on something. It was Corey working on something and Clayton just berating him. Like, you're not doing that lighting on his rib cage, right? I can't remember what image it was, but it was like this like, yeah, it was Corey like rendering this guy's rib cage. And Clayton was like, "You're not doing that," and trying to explain to him in words something that he's doing in pictures. And I was like, this poor kid,
Yeah.
like, I'm going to guess their family, and I'm going to guess that they have a really, really good relationship, because getting beaten up live like that probably isn't very good for anybody else. And so from there, I just, at one point I just said, hi, I was like, hey, how are you guys doing? And then it seemed like it was a pretty inviting enough community and conversation that I didn't feel awkward in saying hi. So I just said hello, and I think it went from there.
It's funny because those streams where Clayton beats up on Corey are some of the fans' favorites.
Is it?
Yeah, they love to see Corey just get worn out.
I feel bad.
John comes in sometimes and just smashes him. It's
and I say kid as respectfully and lovingly as I can. I gotta respect that kid. Jesus Christ. It's basically like stand in the middle of the ring. Everybody in the everybody takes a corner and just goes at you with punching gloves. And he stands there and goes like, yeah, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it like this. Yeah, sure, I'll try that. At no point was he ever like, guys, this is freaking enough. And so I feel exhausted for him, but he's never shown that exhaustion during stream. So all due respect to him, man.
Yeah, I mean, he does. He deserves respect because he takes it because he wants to be a better artist.
For sure.
So lots of people don't, and they can't take criticism as well as Corey does. So hats off to Corey.
And I think it comes from a place. Excuse me for interrupting, Rob, but I think it's also because the group. It comes from a place of trust, right? It comes from a place of a circle of friends, all geared towards helping, with the idea of helping him get better. I think it's different when it's like social media and there's like a ton of people throwing things at you. And I know there's an inherent value of just somebody coming out of left field and saying, hey, that arm is wrong. But I think there's even more value when you're in a circle of friends, a circle of people that you trust, where their primary motivation is to help you get better at your craft, right?
Yeah, I'd agree totally. So you listen to streams while you're working?
Not always. Not always, because I get so involved that I want to start typing and start chit-chatting. The most that I'll do if I know I'm going to get distracted, and again, this is the mechanism of discipline that I implement, is to show my support, to show sort of like, hey man, I'm a fan of being here. I'm a fan of this community. I say hello to this streamer and I say hello to chat, just to say, hey guys, you guys are awesome. Thank you for having me. And I disappear sometimes only because, again, I have to be disciplined about the time that I'm sitting behind this table and looking at a screen,
So when you're not listening to streams, you listening to music, or do you have quiet time? What's your...
No, it's a lot of YouTube videos of how to do things. The other day, I was trying to listen to, oh gosh, it was a engineering video of how inlets are formed on a man-made island. I'm turning into my stepfather very, very quickly, Rob. Right? Like when I was a kid, I couldn't be caught dead listening to this kind of stuff. But nowadays I'm like, oh, I kind of want to know what that is. Or for instance, if I don't know how a Gatling gun works because I'm drawing it and I want to have my take on how a Gatling gun works, suddenly what an amazing resource YouTube is. You can just plug that in and there you go.
That's amazing, isn't it? We're so lucky these days.
Yeah, man.
So what have you learned from participating in chats, and have you applied anything to Arc Athena?
Well, not necessarily directly to the project, although I can speak on that too. I had never believed, and I'm partly ashamed of because I used to stream on Twitch, right? I had never believed in the tightness, and I guess by proxy, the value of a community. I know that sounds weird, but I'd always held people at arm's length, and I still believe that I do that now. But I'd never realized it's an invaluable space to be a part of, especially because it never really clicked. The thing that the community was built around in the past never really clicked around the enthusiasm behind comics or behind this creativity. The community back in the day was just involved in helping to highlight my own body of work. And I was like, the hype for me doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to buy into that, you know? But because I'm an audience member, as opposed to being in front of the camera, you know what I mean? Instead of like being under the spotlight, being part of that community as an audience member is so awesome, right? Because everybody's involved and like, I'm excited about that thing. And I haven't felt that in a long, long time. So that's the one thing I learned was the value of like being an audience member again and being supportive and being enthusiastic and showing that support to somebody, you know? As far as how it applied to Arc Athena, what have I learned? Oh gosh. Sometimes the conversations in the chat or even in the stream itself, one of the things I keep going back to this, and I'm sorry if it gets old, but I am so deathly afraid of falling behind schedule. Because it's like I have never heard a like you get this rush of support from people, but nothing wears that down more than when you don't deliver. I've come to find like that is near the parent, like beyond even like art is excusable, writing is excusable, like people will support that creative endeavor, but when you're behind, it just erodes people's like outlook on you as a creator and then ultimately your product. And I've taken that to heart. I'm so afraid of falling behind in my own ticking clock in my head. Like that's the last thing I ever want to get in. So I learned that in sitting in people's streams, you know?
Let's circle back. What made you leave the industry?
It wasn't financially sustainable for me, not because, well, this is the honest, I'll just speak very frankly. It's like, first, I wasn't fast enough to make it work, right? Like you have to be fast in comics. You have to be succinct in your storytelling and you're turning those pages around like it's a production. And that's like any job. The other thing that turned me off is when you go into animation, when you go into video games, when you go into film, even though you're in that production line, at the very least, you're being compensated accordingly, right? I don't think, and I'll stand in front of anybody who says, you know, who disagrees with me and have a very direct conversation with them. I don't believe that mainstream comic book artists get paid enough to do what they do. I do not believe it. Like, you can't compensate me enough to sit here and I don't believe that it's fair compensation, except like anytime somebody says, well, so-and-so makes this much, like you're citing the exception, not the examples, you know, like you're citing the guys that are near the top of that particular heap. You're not citing the day-to-day page rates, and it's getting worse, you know, because they're finding ways to not pay as much as they go elsewhere for that, you know, in order to get the best value for American dollars. That's how, you know, capitalism industry works. But certainly if you're going to character design, if you're going to build a background, and if you're going to do prop design at any given time, I don't think people are getting paid enough to do it. So not only was I not doing it fast enough, I also started realizing the value of what it meant for me to sit behind this desk needs to be, in my limited perspective, in my opinion, be fairly compensated, and mainstream comics doesn't do that.
If your skill set right now was teleported back to when you were in the mainstream, would you be fast enough now?
I believe so, but still, I would be fast enough, but I wouldn't be I'd be fast enough, but I still wouldn't be marketable.
Yeah.
Like speed is one component. The other component is, are people going to go batshit crazy to buy your books month in and month out? Right. Yeah, I think that's also that's the part that they don't tell you about. That's the part that you have to learn on your own. You can be a great craftsman and you can get hired based on that craft, but if you can't move units, man, doesn't matter.
And you do world building concept art now.
Yeah.
And you run a team. How does that work? How did that happen?
like any of my jobs, accidentally. Like I fall ass. Like my entire career is just a series of me falling ass backwards into everything, every position that I've ever gotten. I got recommended. My tenure in animation was coming to an end. Somebody who I'd known coincidentally from the comic book industry had been in the video game space. They too realized that it's better to be, to better maximize their time behind the desk by going into video games. They had heard that I was becoming available, and I reached out. I reached out to them, and I said, "Hey, is there something available there?" And so, they said, "Yeah, absolutely." They brought me on, tried me out, and it was like something I'd never done before. So, I took the opportunity to try to learn as much about that job as possible. And when I got into that space, where like concept art is almost exclusively digital, right? When they hired me on, I was still doing pencil and paper stuff.
Wow.
So can you imagine a team that was like zipping along, just banging out concept art on their Wacom's and using Photoshop, and here I am with like markers, and they're like, "Oh, old man Canete's in the corner using his Copics,"
That's hilarious.
And so that was an opportunity for me to learn, to be like, oh, in order to be relevant and competitive in this industry, I better get good at doing digital. And so that really motivated me to like spend time to getting good at that too, using that tool.
And like, I assume the pay would be a lot better with concept art. How
that's a conservative assessment of compensation.
Just a little bit. So you run a team? How does that work? Like, how does it all come together? Like, they tell you we need this, and then you go, "Hey guys, draw this." How does it?
That's a misconception just based on what people have seen, I guess, in either documentaries or behind the scenes stuff that they've seen in videos. In my team in specific, I am the least effective person at my job. Like there are people in their early 20s that are running circles around me, and I'm sitting there with like an Afghan blanket trying to stay warm. The best thing that I do at any given day is to facilitate the work and set people up for the best version of success.
Mm-hmm.
People want the job of art director, not realizing how much work goes behind it. So I have an allergic reaction to that concept. All I want to do is to make sure that my team does their job well, set them up so that they can be as creative as possible. And whenever shit starts coming down the pipe, provide enough of a bulletproof vest so none of that shit splashes onto them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And but how does the company, like, what do they ask you for? Like, do they go, "We need a world that has this in it"? Or
I'll give you an example, not necessarily directly related to my day-to-day, but enough so that we both can have like a point of reference. So there is a fantastical world or a fantastical region of the world that has yet to be created, right? You identify what the needs are. They identify the long-term impact of that particular region to the company. And they say, from blank sheet of paper, go build it visually. Your team is going to be tandem to a group of narrative folks that are going to be helped to inform, at least on a headcanon level, if not in a literal written down version of what those visuals mean. And then you guys go build it for however long that you need.
Cool.
Yeah.
Then do they make maps based off your concept art? Is that like?
It all depends. Like my position in my department in specific has to think about the stuff that we create at scale. So it provides a foundational understanding, at least on our end, it's visual. There is a very strong, very relevant narrative component built into it, so that each product that uses it can build with confidence, right? So we give them the basic building blocks of what the Lego set needs to look like. And each team takes that and builds the thing, and it becomes so much more IP protectable because we did the front end work. It's like saying establishing a series Bible, although that's being too simplistic. right? So I think what's the best way? Okay, so if somebody said we need Batman, right? A team goes in there and goes like, okay, so Batman needs to have, this outfit, this symbol, ears like this, his cape needs to have those little thingies at the bottom, and then he needs to have these things on his arm. Gotham City needs to have like Art Deco-ish. It needs to have like these tall buildings. It needs to have this feel, and this feel. But once that Bible has been established, Christopher Nolan can take it and make his Batman movies, right? But so can the Lego Batman people. Those two things stem from this foundational understanding of what Batman and what Batman is as an IP, but they make two wildly different things thematically, right? So that same Bible helps to serve as like the toys, then the comics, then the movies, then the animation, then the whatever have you, right? But without that, everybody starts making their different version of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's like you're putting down the foundation, and then everyone can take from. Yeah.
That's it.
And do you have much crossover with the character design team?
No, I think that if we help to inform on anything, it's how that character is contextualized with the region that they come from. So again, like in the Batman example, I don't ever design Harley Quinn, right? However, if a person is to on a blank piece of paper were to design Harley Quinn, without understanding Gotham, they couldn't make her fit, right? So with that foundational understanding of the region, which is Gotham, now they can go like, oh, Gotham is filled with like killer clowns, and she came from Arkham Asylum that had Joker in it, that had these nuances inside that world. Does that make sense? I know it's very general, but
no, it does. I think that's pretty much all the questions I had.
Yeah, man. I got a chance to draw it, Rob.
Did you?
I did. I drew this down shot. I did it. You couldn't distract me enough to not have me draw today. So there you go. Win.
It's funny, chat arguing about who is a better flatter between Michael and Corey. Just
who is the better flatter between?
No comment.
Did I put you in a tough spot, dude? Is that you picking allegiances?
Yeah, I don't know. How much did Rob pay Eric to be here? Yeah, I know, right?
I didn't. What is that preconceived notion about me? I don't. Who said that just recently? Where I'm like, what are you guys seeing? What is the thing? I don't know what that is, but I am a regular, normal creator guy. At least I choose to think that way. I don't know what that trips me out to think that it's more than just a guy that you're having on your show because you and I talk. You know what I mean? Like, there's no hype behind it. It's just you and me talking.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me that's right.
They're still going on about this. If you say Bancroft, I'm going to do bad flats on Rep 3. Corey's the best ever. There is no one better than Corey.
You said that so convincingly, dude.
I did, didn't I? I did. So what's the rest of the plan for the night for you?
Well, it's 6 p.m. now, a little after 6 p.m. my time. So that means it's I'm going into family evening.
Mm-hmm.
I put on my family hat and I get to go unwind a bit. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm like, I can't wait to finish this freaking page. I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
What about for you? What are you doing?
Do you get anxiety when, for whatever reason, you can't work on the stuff that you want to work on? I know I do.
I do once in a great while, but I've really, the older I get, the more I really try to put a high value in that work-life balance. I know that one helps to inform the other, so I never want to over-index on too much work because I have responsibilities. I do get anxiety. I do think, hey, I'm not doing this fast enough, or I'd love to be able to get to that page, but I know I have to trust that I've built in enough time to be able to get to it. So yeah, I do get it.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Well, that's pretty much it, Eric.
That's awesome.
we can wrap it up here if you'd like.
Absolutely. I mean, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
That was great. Thank you, everyone in chat, for coming and hanging out. If you have any questions, it is literally the last minute, so ask them right now. Corey is shilling Bancroft's puzzle. It's good to see.
I'm so happy that Bancroft's puzzle is doing well for him. When it first popped up on my radar, I was like, a puzzle? And then when it was a success, I'm all like, a puzzle, you know? Like...
Exactly. I bought one. For my wife.
Oh, there you go.
On the dining room table. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, chat. Thanks, Eric,
Thank
for
you
coming.
so much. Yep.